welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 251, and today's date is December 30th, 2013. And the title of this episode is Governments Are Pushing Their Agenda by Using Terrorism. And we can see what is happening out in Russia, in Volgograd. This is the second time an explosion went off in a couple of days, and we can see really what is going on, and we're going to discuss this a little later in this report. But let's get into the economic collapse news right now. We're going to go out to Brazil. Now, we understand that all these governments need to raise revenue throughout the Eurozone, in the U.S., and what do they always do? They implement taxes. They push the taxes on the people. And right now, Brazil is increasing the tax on the debit card purchases abroad by 1,600%. And by doing this, they're going to bring in $221.9 million a year in additional revenue for the government. Now, we understand that the Eurozone area is doing very poorly, and right now, again, retail sales have declined, and this makes perfect sense. Why? Well, a lot of the countries in the Eurozone have double-digit employment. If we look at the youth employment, it's anywhere between 40 and 60%. So we can see why retail sales would be having a problem. And there's a lot of underemployment in the Eurozone area. And right now this goes on to say that the Eurozone retail PMI data for 2013 signaled an overall decline in sales for the fourth month running, and the retail sales fell back to 47.7 in December from 48.0 in November. So again, this should have been a better month than November because of Christmas, and we're getting closer to Christmas. And what are we seeing? We are seeing that sales are declining. Now, since retail is not going well, all these countries have austerity measures in place. People are getting laid off. Unemployment is in the double digits. What do countries need to do? Well, they need to tax people. They need to tax land. They need to tax anything they can tax to raise revenue, because the amount of people working is just not bringing in the revenue to pay the interest on their debt and all their programs. So right now, what is France doing? Well, they're imposing a 75% tax rate on executive salaries. And those people who are making annual salaries exceeding 1 million euros, they're getting hit with a 75% tax, so they're taking home, what, 25%? I mean, this always starts off with the wealthy, and then it trickles down to the middle class, then it trickles down to the poor, and we've seen this time and time again, because it will never be enough, because as they take on more debt, there is more interest on that debt. As they impose more austerity measures in the country, more and more people lose their job, they lose their revenue base, so what do they end up doing? They end up taxing every single person. Now, in the U.S., all the news agencies are out there reporting that home sales are doing fantastically. If we look at CNBC, U.S. pending home sales rise 0.2%. Forbes, pending home sales tick up in November. Reuters, U.S. pending home sales end slide, hint at stabilization. Fox Business News, pending home sales rise slightly. Miss Street View. Well, what really happened here? Well, they kind of manipulated the numbers again. And what they always do is they always go back to the previous month, they revise, and they massage the numbers in a way to make it make sense and to have their increase of pending sales. So right now, the pending home sales index is a forward-looking indicator based on contract signings inched up 0.2% to 101.7 in November from a downwardly revised 101.5 in October. But it is 1.6% below November 2012 when it was 103.3. And the pending home sales numbers were really last month at 102.1, and they revised them down to 101.5 because they realized the numbers were coming in this month at 101.7. So this way it looks like the numbers increased. But in reality, everything has declined from the same time last year by 1.6. So this is all completely manipulated. And again, if the unemployment numbers are coming down and more people have jobs compared to last year at this time, which is, what is it, like 0.8% lower, more people should be buying houses. More people should be purchasing retail. More stores should be expanding. Citibank, Wells Fargo, Bank of America should be expanding their mortgage departments instead of laying off thousands upon thousands of people in August and September when they knew that this real estate bubble was going to pop. So they started already trimming their departments down so they wouldn't be caught in this complete collapse that's going to happen. And they know what's going on. They understand that this is all completely manipulated, and all they continually do is manipulate all of these numbers. Now, right now, the U.S. dollar is being dumped. For the second time in a week, the market is running away from the U.S. dollar. And we see this completely happening from all the time, that people are actually dumping the dollar. And we understand right now that millions of Americans are losing their unemployment benefits at this time. We do understand that the Senate right now is looking to reintroduce the unemployment extension, but right now, unemployment, those people are not receiving the benefits. And what happens is they're going to fall off the track which calculates unemployment. So instead of 7%, unemployment is going to fall to what? 6.5%, somewhere in that range. But as time goes on, and if these unemployment benefits, the extension, is not reintroduced, more and more people are going to fall off throughout the year because they don't have extended unemployment. If we look at during the mid time of the year, there's going to be another 1.9 million people who are going to drop off of unemployment. By the end of 2014, it will be around 5 million people. So the unemployment rate is probably going to be about 5.5%. Now, that doesn't mean that these people have jobs. It means that they are no longer receiving unemployment benefits. It means that they have fallen off and no longer looking. Why? Because there's just no jobs out there, so they're no longer looking. And this doesn't mean that the unemployment rate has actually gone down. It is a manipulated number which has been manipulating since 1994. If you look at the actual calculation, like on shadowstats.com, we can see that unemployment is really between 25 and 30% at this time. Now, in my reports a couple days ago or so, there are a couple senators out there, a lot of Democrat senators, Republican senators, looking to impeach Obama. And an email was sent out on Saturday evening, and which is raising fears that the president could be removed from office if enough Republicans take control of the Congress. The notice was entitled "Impeachment" in the subject line and was sent to Obama for America supporters and featured quotes from Senator James Inhofe, Michelle Bachmann, Carrie Bentaviglio, Blake Farenthold, and many other senators looking to impeach Obama because of breaking the law and doing a lot of the decisions which are unconstitutional. And they are trying to put this together, and we'll have to see how this plays out. And if this starts to move forward, this will actually increase the chances of a false flag to distract everyone from the impeachment process and put all eyes onto the false flag event. So we see that many aspects are now occurring which would allow this false flag event to occur. We have the Fed saying that they're tapering in January, which we know they cannot fully on-taper. We understand that the economy is collapsing at this time. The Eurozone is in a recession/depression. The debt ceiling debate is coming up again, and everything now is in motion. We have the pivot to Asia. We have the military positioning all military assets. We see that the Iranian talks are degrading right now, and this is a complete illusion of what is really going on in Iran. And all of this is all fitting together, and we see more and more reports of Al-Qaeda terrorists in the country, lone wolves roaming around. In my I think it was Saturday, my Saturday's report. I discussed a dry run on a power grid infrastructure in California, and we can see that all of this is all now starting to come together for what is going to happen at this time. Now, there is a report, and we understand that the NSA is completely spying on every single person. We understand that they're creating social profiles using facial recognition, DNA databases, and they're trying to put all this together, and they're continually spying. They're not letting up on the amount of spying. They're actually increasing the amount of spying that they're doing. And right now we've learned that the NSA diverted computers and laptops from shipping facilities to install spyware and all their operational software so they can spy on every single person. And what happens is the shipper would ship out the laptop or desktop, and the NSA would intercept it, open up the box, install what they needed to, pack it back up like you couldn't even tell, and ship it right back to the homes, and no one was the wiser. And this goes on to say that Der Spiegel reported on Sunday that the NSA's tailored access operations has been diverting desktops and laptops shipped to U.S. consumers and installing spyware on them. The packages are then reintroduced into delivery pipeline and arrive at their destination without the consumer ever realizing their machine has been compromised. So we can see how they are doing this. And we have to remember that all of these applications that they put on all the phones, on the computers, on your TV sets, everywhere, all these companies allow the NSA to do this. The NSA is actually paying them to create this back door for them to easily access every single piece of equipment. And they've done this on purpose because they really don't have the ability to crack real encryption codes. And this is why they need the back door without a warrant, which is completely against the Fourth Amendment. Now, I know I discussed that the NSA, with the judge ruling that NSA is completely legal, but we have another judge saying that this is completely unconstitutional. And I have to say, let's compare this, and I just want to say this one thing here. Let's take the mail service right now. Now, can you imagine, forget about electronic data. Let's compare the two, because really there is no difference. Just because something is in a 0-1 type of format, 0-1-0-1-0-1, which is a binary format, is no difference than the NSA in the post office opening every single piece of mail, reading it, then closing it back up and sending it on its way. Reading it by taking a picture and storing it in their files. It is exactly the same thing as you sending an email to someone. It is your private communication. Talking on the phone is your private communication. It doesn't matter what format it is in. It is still completely against the Fourth Amendment. And this case that they're only looking for terrorists, they're capturing all of this data, and they're looking at every single piece of data to find the terrorist data that they need. So they're illegally searching and looking through everyone's data without a warrant. And I'm sorry, this is against the Fourth Amendment because it is the exact same thing as them opening every single letter that is sent out and every package that goes through the United States Post Office, through FedEx, through UPS, and reading what is inside every single one of these, then sealing it, taking a picture, putting it in their files, sealing it back up, and sending it away to you. So it is exactly the same thing. There is absolutely no difference whatsoever. Okay. Now we understand that right now, the president of Afghanistan will not sign the agreement with the United States. And the United States is getting a little antsy right now because they need this agreement signed so they can barge in and go into anyone's home, search it, drag people out, kill them, you know, everything that's completely against the law here in the United States, but is okay in other. It's okay for U.S. soldiers to do in other countries in the name of finding terrorists. And the United States right now is getting a little worried because the president of Afghanistan hasn't signed, and there are thousands and thousands of troops out in Afghanistan, and the United States central bankers know that they cannot leave the Afghan area because Chinese are in there helping them mine copper. They have the third largest copper mine. They are growing the poppy fields to create opium to sell, to provide funds for their covert operations, which would never be funded by the actual Congress. So they have to use these funds, and they also use these funds to pay for all Al-Qaeda operatives, privateers, and all these people that are out doing the bidding of the U.S. government. And right now, they're coming out with this report saying, if the United States isn't in Afghanistan, what's going to happen is that Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, are going to overrun Afghanistan, and they're trying to worry the Afghan people. If the United States is not there, that this whole entire operation will completely fall apart, and you'll be back to where you started from. And of course, the president in Afghanistan is saying that's absolutely ridiculous because he knows exactly why the U.S. is in Afghanistan. Now, as we know, there was a second terror attack at Volgograd, and there have been two attacks, and within 2 days right now, and we have to remember, we have to think back what Netanyahu, the Saudis, said to President Putin, that there could be some type of terrorist threat, that there are militants running around, and you should really secure the entire area for the Olympics. And we have to understand, at that time, Putin put up a missile shield system to protect the Olympics at this time, and we can see that the terrorist attacks are coming right before the Olympics, and they're trying to show the world that Russia is not a secure place, that Russia is open to terrorist attacks, and right now the U.S., along with Saudi Arabia and Israel, are all in on this in CIA operations because an ex-CIA officer said, that the Russian President Putin must tread carefully in responding to domestic terrorist attacks with the 2014 Sochi Olympics on the horizon. And it also, the U.S., the CIA, go on to say that Russia looks insecure. Putin looks bad, and it's going to be very difficult for them to react in a way that will not make the situation worse, while at the same time providing security for the people of Russia and all those people coming to Sochi. So they're trying to make the world believe that Russia is not secure. They can't handle what is going on there. The U.S. and, of course, President Obama, who is going to not attend the Olympics, sent out a message saying that, U.S. could come over there and help out, secure Russia, and make it a safe place. And we can see what is going on here. And Russia absolutely knows what is going on. And I am not for Russia. I'm not for any of these countries. I'm just reporting what I am seeing here. And Russia is saying that the Volgograd attacks are an attempt to open an internal front, spreading chaos. Cynically planned on the eve of New Year celebrations, this strike is another attempt by terrorists to open an internal front, spread panic and chaos, cause interreligious hatred and conflict in Russian society. And we can see what is happening right now. Other governments are using operatives to make Russia look like it's vulnerable, it's not secure, it's not safe, and they've done this in many different places. They've done this in other countries where they caused riots. They've done this in other places where they overthrown governments, and here they are right now doing the same thing. And right now, the Volgograd blasts were staged using the same template as recent terror attacks in the U.S., Syria, Iraq, Libya, Afghanistan, Nigeria, and other countries. And we see this happening all around the world. We see that these terrorist attacks are formulated by governments to make the people do certain things, give up their freedoms, go to war, topple a government, and this is what is going on right now. Now, a Russian analyst was out there saying that the pivot to Asia and the current strategy of the United States is not going to work against China when war breaks out. And they're saying that the U.S. air-sea battle concept is useless against the PLA. The United States will not be able to constrain China with its current air-sea battle concept, according to Vasily Kashin. The air-sea battle concept was first created to destroy the command, control, communications, computers, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance systems of the People's Liberation Army. China has been preparing to defend itself against the U.S. strategy for years. It has led China to spend huge amounts of resources to counter the concept by means of electronic warfare, cyber attacks, and the use of anti-satellite weapons. The U.S. has two powerful allies in Asia, Japan and South Korea, but neither country are capable of competing against China alone. So we can see what is happening out in Asia. There is definitely a pivot to Asia because they're telling us this. They are moving military assets to all the islands. They're setting up a missile base in Guam. They're building a new, better, stronger base off of Okinawa, and they're bringing in more sophisticated weapons because we understand what is happening. It is World War III, and they are prepping for this. Now, in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia and the Gulf nations are preparing for war there, and this is why the Gulf nations are preparing a 100,000 troop force to combat Syria and Iran. And Saudi Arabia is giving the Lebanese army about $3 billion in aid and other armaments to help them. And since they've done this, all of a sudden, the Lebanon's army used an anti-aircraft defense system to fire at Syrian helicopters after they carried out a raid in Lebanese territory. So we can see that these are going to be escalating. We have to remember that Saudi Arabia purchased, tanks, planes, and they are building their forces because they understand that there's going to be a war in this area. Now, we understand to get these wars started, there's going to need to be some type of an attack here in the United States, because having an attack out in the Middle East, the people of the United States, the Congress, are not going to be really that concerned about what's going on. Actually, the polls in Afghanistan are, people are saying they just want the troops out of there. There's no reason for us to be there. Syria, the United States people, the people of the U.S., Congress had no interest in going to war, even though the president, John Kerry, McCain were all out there beating their drums saying, yes, yes, we need to go to war, we need to go to war. The polls were so low, no one was very interested at all. Now, we understand that the economy is collapsing. We understand that the Fed is completely controlling the entire market, manipulating all the numbers, and eventually this whole thing will come crumbling down. We understand all this. We understand that the unemployment, GDP, inflation numbers are all fake. We understand that this taper cannot happen, and they're going to use this to show that the economy is recovering, and then we're going to see some type of an event that will stop the tapering, which will allow the Fed and the U.S. government saying that we need to increase the QE to pump up our markets because of Syria, because of Iran, because of China, because of North Korea, any one of the countries. And they've been building this up, and this is a long time build-up process. And what they've been doing is they've been warning us about terrorist attacks. They've been warning us about lone wolf attacks. They've been warning us that there are terrorists coming through the Canadian borders, and they are bomb makers. And we can see this happening, even with the dry run on the power grid in California and the memo that was being passed around about the dry runs on airlines. And now we also have the cyber attacks, which Boeing came out to say that a cyber attack could hit an airline system and take the airline over. But now the FBI is warning the police nationwide to be on alert for people carrying almanacs. cautioning that this popular reference book, covering everything from abbreviations to weather trends, could be used for terrorist planning. In a bulletin sent Christmas Eve to about 18,000 police organizations, the FBI said terrorists may use almanacs to assist with target selections and pre-operational planning. The practice of researching potential targets is consistent with known methods of Al Qaeda and other terrorist organizations that seek to maximize the likelihood of operational success through careful planning. The FBI noted that the use of almanacs or maps may be innocent, the product of legitimate recreational or commercial activities, but it warned that when combined with suspicious behavior, such as apparent surveillance, a person with an almanac may point to possible terrorist planning. The FBI said information typically found in almanacs that could be useful for terrorists includes profiles of cities and states and information about waterways, bridges, dams, reservoirs, tunnels, buildings, and landmarks. It said this information is often accompanied by photographs and maps. So make sure you do not carry around your almanac and don't look suspicious, because you will be considered an Al-Qaeda terrorist. And we understand why they are doing this. We understand why Mike Rogers, Dianne Feinstein are all out there telling us that Al-Qaeda presence is increasing, why they are in the country, why DHS is bringing them in, why all this is happening. The reason for this is because they are planning an event. They are planning something so they can get the war started, so they can blame the collapse on another country. This is why all of this is happening at this time. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.